Flight attendant denies black woman a blanket, learns she's a famous author. The cabin of the airplane hummed with the low, rhythmic sound of the engines. Rows of seats lined the fuselage, filled with passengers of varying backgrounds, each lost in their own world as they prepared for the journey ahead. The overhead lights cast a soft glow, creating a sense of intimacy in the confined space. It was a typical afternoon flight, the kind that blended into the thousands of others that crisscrossed the skies every day. Before we can continue, if you love your family, subscribe to this channel to help up creating amazing stories. Now, let's continue. In the midst of this ordinary atmosphere sat Maya Johnson, a woman in her late 30s with striking features and an air of quiet confidence. She was known for her best-selling novels that explored themes of identity, resilience, and social justice. Today, however, she was just another traveler, clutching her well-worn leather bag, which contained her latest manuscript. Maya gazed out the window, watching the clouds drift by, her mind racing with thoughts about her upcoming book launch and the speeches she needed to prepare. As the flight attendant, Linda, made her rounds, her bright smile felt somewhat forced. Linda was in her early 40s, a woman who had spent years in the air, serving passengers with a practiced grace. But lately, she had been feeling the weight of her job, a mix of monotony and the occasional outburst from disgruntled travelers. Today was no different. She had already dealt with a fussy child, an elderly man who couldn't find his glasses, and a couple arguing about seating arrangements. Maya's presence caught Linda's eye as she passed by. Dressed casually yet elegantly, Maya exuded a certain charisma that made Linda briefly consider the stories that might lie behind those calm, thoughtful eyes. But Linda's daydream was interrupted by a quick mental checklist: safety procedures, meal orders, and, of course, blankets. "Excuse me," Maya called out as Linda approached. "Could I get a blanket, please? I'm feeling a bit cold." Linda's expression shifted slightly. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the blankets are reserved for first-class passengers," she replied curtly, barely making eye contact. The words slipped out before she could process their weight. Maya blinked, taken aback by the abruptness of the response. The dismissal stung, not because of the blanket itself, but because of the way it was delivered. "I understand, but it's quite chilly back here," she said, attempting to maintain her composure. "Is there any way I could get one?" Linda hesitated, glancing at the first-class section where passengers lounged in plush seats, wrapped in warm blankets. "I really can't," she insisted, her tone firm, as if the rules were etched in stone. Maya's heart sank, a familiar feeling of being underestimated washing over her. She looked around at the other passengers, some engrossed in their screens, others flipping through magazines, but no one seemed to notice the exchange. It felt isolating, a stark reminder of how often she had encountered such situations in her life, where her worth seemed diminished by the mere color of her skin. As the flight progressed, the tension in the air thickened. Maya felt a knot form in her stomach, each passing moment deepening her discomfort. She opened her laptop, trying to focus on her writing, but the words danced away from her, taunting her. How could she concentrate when her mind was preoccupied with the dismissal she had just experienced? Meanwhile, Linda bustled about the cabin, serving drinks and snacks, yet the encounter with Maya lingered in the back of her mind. As she moved through the aisles, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had misjudged the woman. It wasn't just about the blanket, it was about respect, dignity, and the subtle prejudices that often went unexamined. Linda's interactions with other passengers felt increasingly strained. She noticed how some people didn't even glance in her direction, while others demanded her attention with a sense of entitlement that irked her. In that moment, she realized how easy it was to overlook the humanity of those she served, to see them merely as numbers on a passenger list. But today felt different. Maya's quiet dignity resonated within her, challenging her preconceived notions. As the flight continued, the atmosphere shifted subtly. Maya's frustration began to transform into a quiet determination. She pulled out her notebook and began jotting down thoughts for her next book. What if she wrote about experiences like this? About the complexities of identity and the power dynamics that often played out in everyday interactions? The ink flowed as she captured her thoughts, a mix of personal reflection and creative inspiration ignited by the situation. Meanwhile, Linda caught a glimpse of Maya from the front of the cabin. The way she wrote, the intensity on her face, stirred something within her. Who was this woman? Why did she evoke such a sense of curiosity? Linda felt a flicker of shame for having dismissed her so readily. In a moment of clarity, she realized that she had let her biases cloud her judgment, a mistake she would have to confront sooner rather than later. As the flight neared its cruising altitude, Linda took a deep breath, preparing to check on passengers once more. She couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that she owed Maya more than just a blanket. She needed to acknowledge her, to recognize her presence and worth, not just as a passenger, but as a person with a story. The flight carried on, the cabin filled with the sound of chatter and the soft rustle of bags being stowed. Maya continued to write, the pages filling with her thoughts, weaving a narrative that would not only reflect her experiences, but also challenge the world to confront its biases. And as the two women's paths intertwined on that seemingly ordinary flight, neither knew that the day would take an unexpected turn, leading to a confrontation that would change both their lives forever. As the airplane leveled off, a sense of routine settled in. The hum of the engines created a white noise that enveloped the cabin, while the cabin crew moved about with practiced efficiency. Maya Johnson sat in her seat, the weight of the flight attendant's dismissal still heavy on her mind. She gazed out the window, watching the clouds drift lazily beneath her, a stark contrast to the turbulence of emotions swirling within her. Maya had always been an observer. Whether at a coffee shop, in a crowded subway, or on an airplane, she found solace in watching people, imagining their stories. Today, however, she felt the spotlight on her, acutely aware of the tension that had just transpired. She shifted in her seat, pulling her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, a small attempt to ward off the chill that lingered. A few rows ahead, Angela, a middle-aged woman with an air of confidence, turned her head and caught sight of Maya. She had seen the exchange and felt a pang of empathy. Angela was a businesswoman who often traveled for work, and she had encountered her fair share of discrimination in the corporate world. Her heart went out to Maya, and she made a mental note to offer her support if the opportunity arose. "Is everything okay back there?" Angela called out to Maya, her voice warm and inviting. Maya looked up, surprised but grateful. "Just a bit chilly, thanks," she replied, forcing a smile. "Let me know if you need anything." "I'm in 10B, Angela offered, giving Maya an encouraging nod before turning back to her laptop. The small gesture of kindness lifted Maya's spirits slightly. It reminded her that not everyone was oblivious to the dynamics at play. She returned to her writing, but her mind wandered back to the flight attendant. Meanwhile, Linda continued her service, but her demeanor had shifted. She couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that nagged at her. As she approached a row of seats, she overheard two women, Jenna and Kathy, engaged in a spirited discussion about their vacation plans. Their laughter rang out, a stark contrast to Maya's earlier interaction. "Did you hear about that new resort in the Caribbean? I can't wait to relax on the beach," Jenna said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Kathy chuckled. "Only if you promise to bring me back a souvenir. You know I'm not flying anywhere without a good excuse." Linda handed them their drinks, listening to their chatter while mentally replaying the moment with Maya. She felt a rush of regret. Could she have handled it differently? The thought lingered, distracting her from her duties. As she moved to the back of the cabin, she noticed Maya, still absorbed in her writing. There was a sense of determination in the way she scribbled notes, and Linda felt a strange compulsion to know more about her. What story was unfolding on those pages? Sitting across the aisle, David, a young man with headphones in, was oblivious to the unfolding drama. He was deeply immersed in a podcast, his body swaying slightly to the rhythm of the discussion. But every so often, he glanced up, catching snippets of conversation around him. He noticed Maya's tense posture and the way she seemed to retreat into herself. "Hey, is everything okay?" David finally asked, taking off his headphones. He was surprised to see a woman who looked so poised be the center of what seemed to be an unspoken conflict. Maya glanced up, slightly startled. "Yeah, just a little cold," she said, trying to downplay the situation. David nodded, sensing there was more to it. "I get it. I hate when they crank up the AC. You need a blanket?" he offered, gesturing to the overhead compartment as if he could simply conjure one. Before she could respond, Rachel, a flight attendant who had just joined the team, passed by. She caught David's eye. "If you need anything, let me know," she said, smiling brightly. She was known for her ability to connect with passengers, often turning a mundane flight into a pleasant experience. Maya smiled faintly at the interactions around her, feeling a flicker of warmth despite the earlier incident. The flight was shaping up to be more than just a means of transportation. It was evolving into a microcosm of society, a place where human interactions, whether positive or negative, were magnified. As the flight continued, Linda made her way to the galley, her mind still racing. She couldn't help but reflect on Maya's presence and the exchange they had. The woman was clearly more than just a passenger. She was a storyteller, and that intrigued Linda. "Hey, did you see that?" The woman in the back, she looks so familiar, Jenna mentioned to Kathy, who was busy scrolling through her phone. Kathy glanced up, squinting in concentration. "What do you mean?" "The one who asked for a blanket." "Yeah, that's her. I think she's an author or something." "I swear I've seen her books on the shelves," Jenna said, her curiosity piqued. Kathy raised an eyebrow, now interested. "Really? Do you remember her name?" Jenna shook her head. "No, but I'll look it up." It's amazing how you can be on a flight with someone famous and not even realize it. As their conversation unfolded, Maya, still unaware of the attention she was garnering, continued to write. She lost herself in the flow of words, crafting a narrative that explored the complexities of her experience as a Black woman navigating a world filled with biases and expectations. She drew from her own life, infusing her characters with the depth and nuance that often felt absent in popular media. Meanwhile, Linda, re-entering the cabin with a tray of drinks, overheard Jenna and Kathy's conversation. The realization hit her hard. Maya was not just a passenger. She was someone whose work had likely impacted many lives. Suddenly, Linda felt the weight of her earlier actions more acutely. As she served drinks, she glanced back at Maya, who was now typing furiously. The sight stirred a mix of admiration and regret within her. How had she allowed her biases to cloud her judgment? She was supposed to be an ambassador of goodwill, a facilitator of comfort. Instead, she had created a moment of discomfort for someone whose presence could inspire change. Maya paused for a moment, sensing the intensity of Linda's gaze. She met the flight attendant's eyes, and for a fleeting second, the air felt charged with unspoken words. Maya held her breath, waiting for Linda to approach, to acknowledge the tension that had hung in the air like a thick fog. But Linda turned away, her mind a whirl of thoughts and regrets. She had to make amends, to somehow bridge the gap she had created. As she continued her service, she plotted how she might approach Maya later, how to turn the situation around and recognize the woman for who she truly was. In the midst of the unfolding drama, Angela observed the interactions closely. She admired Maya's quiet strength and was increasingly bothered by the treatment she had received. She decided that if the opportunity arose, she would speak up, echoing the support that Maya seemed to be lacking in this confined space. The flight pressed on, and the mood oscillated between casual conversation and quiet introspection. Maya felt a mix of anxiety and determination. Each word she typed felt like a small act of resistance, a way to reclaim her narrative in a world that often tried to silence her. As the clouds drifted by outside, she found a rhythm in her writing, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. The words flowed like a river, carrying with them the weight of her experiences, her hopes, and her dreams. She was writing for herself, but also for every woman who had ever felt dismissed or marginalized. Meanwhile, the other passengers continued to engage in their own conversations, blissfully unaware of the unfolding story around them. David returned his podcast, Kathy scrolled through social media, and Angela tried to catch glimpses of Maya's screen. Each person existed in their own bubble, Yet the invisible threads connecting them all were becoming increasingly tangled. As the flight attendant circled back, Linda took a deep breath. She needed to seize the moment. The airplane was not just a vessel for travel, it was a community, a tapestry of lives intersecting in this brief space of time. She had a chance to make a difference, to acknowledge Maya's presence and the impact of her work. Finally, as Linda approached, she felt the weight of her role settle on her shoulders. The moment had arrived for her to confront her biases and extend a hand of understanding. "Excuse me," Linda said, her voice steady yet soft as she reached Maya's row. "I just wanted to apologize for earlier. I realize now that my response was out of line. Thank you for your patience." Maya looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. This was the moment she had not anticipated, the acknowledgement she craved. "Thank you," she replied, her voice warm but guarded. "I appreciate that." "I noticed you writing," Linda continued, her curiosity piqued. "If you don't mind me asking, what are you working on?" Maya hesitated for a moment, weighing her words. "I'm actually writing a book. It explores themes of identity and resilience," she said, her tone shifting to one of pride. Linda's eyes widened. "That sounds incredible. I'd love to hear more about it. It's amazing how stories can reflect our experiences." In that moment, the tension began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of connection. Maya felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this flight would turn out to be more than just an ordinary journey. As the two women began to share their stories, the cabin around them faded into the background. The flight was transforming into a space of understanding, a place where stories collided, igniting conversations that would linger long after they had landed. As the plane cruised smoothly above the clouds, the atmosphere in the cabin began to shift. The initial tension between Maya and Linda had transformed into a tentative camaraderie, the walls of misunderstanding slowly crumbling. Maya, encouraged by Linda's willingness to engage, found herself sharing snippets of her life, her journey as an author, the inspiration behind her stories, and her mission to amplify voices often overlooked in literature. "I write about experiences that reflect the complexities of identity," Maya explained, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "It's important to me that my characters feel real, that they represent the diverse tapestry of our society." Linda nodded, captivated. "That's powerful. So many people need to see themselves in stories. It makes a world of difference." Maya smiled, feeling a rush of validation. She had spent years pouring her heart into her work, and it was fulfilling to have someone recognize the significance of her voice. "Exactly. I believe stories can challenge perceptions and foster empathy. When we see ourselves in someone else's journey, it opens doors to understanding." Meanwhile, David, sitting across the aisle, noticed the animated conversation between Maya and Linda. He had put his headphones away, intrigued by the dynamic. The warmth in Maya's tone contrasted sharply with the chill of their earlier interaction. He couldn't help but lean in a bit, curious about who Maya really was. Across the cabin, Angela had been trying to focus on her work, but found herself drawn into the conversation. The idea that the woman she had empathized with earlier was an accomplished author was exciting. She took out her phone, ready to look up Maya's books. As Maya shared her experiences, she recounted the challenges of being a Black woman in the literary world, how she had often faced skepticism and prejudice, not only from readers, but also from publishers. "There's this misconception that my work is niche or only relevant to a specific audience," she said, her brow furrowing slightly. "But stories about identity are universal. We all grapple with who we are, where we come from, and the narratives that shape us." Linda listened intently, her heart aching for the struggles Maya had faced. "That's so true. It's disheartening how narrow-minded some people can be, especially in a field like literature, which should be about inclusivity and exploration." Maya's expression softened as she recognized the genuine empathy in Linda's words. "I've learned to embrace my voice, even when it feels like I'm shouting into the void. Each story I write is a step toward carving out space for others like me." As their conversation deepened, David's interest piqued even further. He leaned over slightly, unable to resist. Excuse me, but are you by any chance Maya Johnson, the author? Maya turned to him, surprised. Yes, that's me. Have you read my work? David grinned, a spark of excitement in his eyes. I've seen your book covers at the bookstore. I've meant to pick one up. Your stories are really well regarded. I'm glad to meet you. The acknowledgement felt like a small victory for Maya, a sign that her voice was resonating beyond the confines of her immediate circles. Thank you. I appreciate that, she said, her heart swelling with gratitude. Meanwhile, Linda felt a shift within herself. It was as if she had been presented with a new lens through which to view the world. Maya was no longer just a passenger. She was a pioneer, a woman who had the courage to challenge the status quo through her writing. Linda's earlier embarrassment about the blanket incident was slowly giving way to admiration. As Maya continued to share her journey, the cabin around them seemed to fade into the background. She spoke of her childhood, growing up in a neighborhood that was both vibrant and challenging. My parents always encouraged me to tell my story, to write about what I knew, she said, her eyes lighting up with nostalgia. They taught me that my voice mattered, even when the world tried to silence it. Angela, who had been discreetly listening, felt compelled to speak up. That's beautiful. Your parents clearly instilled a strong sense of self-worth in you. It's so important to have that foundation. Maya nodded, appreciating the connection. Absolutely. They faced their own struggles, but they always emphasized the importance of education and storytelling. My mom used to say, "Your words are your power." The sentiment resonated with Linda, who found herself reflecting on her own upbringing. She had always been encouraged to pursue her dreams, yet she had often conformed to societal expectations. Listening to Maya reignited a spark within her, reminding her of the importance of authenticity. As the conversation unfolded, Jenna and Kathy, who had been eavesdropping from their seats, leaned in. "We can't believe we're sitting next to such an incredible author," Jenna exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "Your stories are so important. They've inspired so many." Maya felt a wave of warmth wash over her. It was as if the support of the people around her was lifting her spirits higher. "Thank you. That means a lot. I really believe in the power of storytelling to bridge divides and foster understanding." Kathy chimed in, "I'd love to read your work. Do you have any recommendations for where to start?" Maya's heart soared. "My latest book, Finding Home, dives deep into the experiences of individuals navigating their identities in a multicultural society. I think it captures a lot of what I've shared today. Adding it to my reading list right now," Kathy said, pulling out her phone to search for the title. As more passengers began to engage in the conversation, the atmosphere in the cabin transformed. What had once been a mere collection of individuals isolated in their own worlds now felt like a community, a space where stories were shared and lives intersected. In the midst of the lively exchange, Linda seized the moment to ask, "Have you faced any particularly memorable challenges in your career?" Maya paused, reflecting. "There have been many, but one that stands out was the time I was told my work was too niche by a publisher. It was disheartening, especially when you put your heart and soul into something. But it also motivated me to self-publish and take control of my narrative. That's when I really found my audience." David leaned in, intrigued. Self-publishing has become such a powerful tool for authors. It allows for more creative freedom and gives marginalized voices a platform. It's inspiring to see how you turned a setback into an opportunity. Maya smiled, grateful for the support. Exactly. It's a reminder that our stories matter, no matter how they're delivered. I wanted to create a space where readers could find authenticity and connection. Angela, her heart swelling with admiration, chimed in, "That's such an important lesson for all of us. It's easy to feel discouraged, but your journey is proof that perseverance pays off." The discussion continued to flow, each word weaving a tapestry of shared experiences. The cabin was alive with energy, the kind of warmth that comes from genuine connection. Maya felt seen, valued, and empowered in a way she hadn't anticipated when she boarded the plane. As they shared laughter and insights, the flight attendant, Rachel, returned to the area, carrying a tray of snacks. I couldn't help but overhear. This sounds like an inspiring conversation. What's the topic? Just discussing the power of storytelling and identity, David replied, gesturing to Maya. This is Maya Johnson, the author. Rachel's eyes widened.
Wow, it's an honor to meet you.
I've heard so much about your work. Your stories resonate with so many people, especially in today's world. Maya felt a blush creeping into her cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and delight. Thank you. That really means a lot to me. As Rachel passed out snacks, the camaraderie continued to grow. People began to share their own stories, moments of resilience, struggles with identity, and the power of community. Jenna shared her journey of launching a nonprofit focused on empowering underrepresented youth through the arts. Kathy spoke about her experience traveling to different countries and how those interactions shaped her understanding of culture and identity. Linda, inspired by the conversation, shared her own journey in the airline industry. I've been fortunate to meet so many diverse individuals over the years, but I realize that I often take their stories for granted. This conversation is a wake-up call for me to appreciate the richness in our differences. Maya nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. That's the beauty of these exchanges. We learn from one another. Every story holds a lesson. As the flight progressed, the cabin transformed into a space of unity. Passengers engaged in discussions about books, experiences, and the shared human condition. What had once been a routine journey now felt like an enriching adventure, filled with connections that transcended the confines of the airplane. Maya felt invigorated by the unfolding dialogue. Each person contributed to the tapestry of understanding, creating a mosaic of experiences that celebrated diversity and resilience. It was a reminder that even in a world often divided by differences, there existed the possibility of connection. As they approached their destination, the flight attendants began their final rounds, preparing for landing. Linda took a moment to express her gratitude to Maya. Thank you for sharing your story with me today. It's a reminder of why I love this job, the chance to connect with people from all walks of life. Maya smiled, her heart full, and thank you for opening the door to that connection. It means more than you know. As the airplane began its descent, the conversations continued, the energy in the cabin electric with shared experiences and newfound friendships. Maya looked around, feeling a profound sense of belonging in a space that had initially felt so isolating. As they touched down, the passengers began to gather their belongings, but the atmosphere remained charged with excitement. Many exchanged contact information, promising to continue the conversations that had sparked on this flight. Maya felt a surge of hope as she prepared to disembark. This flight had become more than just a journey across the skies. It had transformed into a celebration of stories, a reminder that every person carries a unique narrative worth sharing. As she stepped off the plane, she looked back at the cabin filled with new friends and connections. It was a moment she would carry with her, a testament to the power of storytelling and the importance of recognizing the humanity in one another. As the airplane doors opened and passengers began to disembark, the atmosphere inside the cabin buzzed with excitement and newfound friendships. Maya stepped into the terminal, the hum of voices and the rush of travelers around her invigorating her spirit. She felt lighter, almost buoyant, as if the conversations had unburdened her in a way she hadn't anticipated. Linda was one of the last to leave the plane, her mind still reeling from the connections that had been forged. She glanced back at Maya, who was chatting animatedly with Angela and David. The flight had transformed from a mundane obligation into a powerful experience, and Linda couldn't help but smile at the thought. Maya caught Linda's gaze and waved, a genuine smile lighting up her face. "Thank you for everything. It was an unforgettable flight," she called out, her voice filled with warmth. Linda felt a rush of pride. "Thank you for sharing your story. You've inspired me today," she replied, her heart swelling. As she stepped off the plane, she made a silent promise to carry that inspiration into her everyday life. In the terminal, Maya and the other passengers exchanged contact information, eager to continue their conversations. Angela, who had been particularly drawn to Maya's insights, pulled out her phone. "Let's keep in touch. I'd love to discuss your work further. Your perspective is so refreshing." Maya smiled, grateful for the connection. "Absolutely. I'd love to hear more about your nonprofit as well. It sounds incredible." As they chatted, David chimed in. "I'm definitely going to pick up your book, Maya. I can't believe I didn't know who you were until now." Maya laughed, feeling a sense of camaraderie with her new friends. "It's always nice to be recognized for the work you do. I'm glad we could connect like this." Once they exchanged numbers and promised to meet up in the future, Maya took a moment to reflect on the flight. It had been a whirlwind of emotions, initial frustration giving way to inspiration and connection. She had entered the airplane as just another passenger, but left feeling like a member of a community. As she made her way through the terminal, she noticed a bookstore nestled in the corner. Drawn to it, she decided to stop in. It was small but filled with a curated selection of titles, each one a portal to a different world. She felt a familiar thrill as she scanned the shelves, her fingers grazing the spines of books that had once inspired her. Just then, she spotted her own book, Finding Home, prominently displayed. The sight filled her with a rush of pride, reminding her of the hard work and dedication that had gone into its creation. "Wow," she murmured to herself, picking it up and running her fingers over the cover. "Is that your book?" A voice called from behind her. It was Rachel, the flight attendant from earlier. Maya turned, her surprise quickly morphing into joy.
Yes.
"I can't believe it's here. It's such a surreal moment," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I'm so glad I ran into you. I just wanted to say again how much your story resonated with me. I've never met an author before, and it was such a pleasure to hear you talk about your work," Rachel said, her enthusiasm evident. "Thank you.
I really appreciate that."
It's always rewarding to connect with readers and fellow storytellers," Maya replied, feeling a warm connection bloom between them. Rachel looked at the book in Maya's hands. "Are you doing a signing or anything? I'd love to get a copy." Maya smiled, her heart swelling. "Actually, I have a book launch event coming up next week. I'd love for you to come. It'll be at a local bookstore, and I'll be doing a reading and a Q&A session." "That sounds amazing. I'll definitely be there," Rachel said, her excitement palpable. It's so important to support authors like you, who are bringing such vital stories to the forefront. The two women chatted for a while longer, Maya sharing details about her book and Rachel expressing her own love for reading. In that moment, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. It was clear that her words had the power to connect people, to foster understanding, and to inspire change. After saying their goodbyes, Maya left the bookstore, her heart brimming with hope. The terminal felt alive with possibilities, and she realized that the connections she had forged during the flight were just the beginning. This was the kind of community she had always dreamed of being a part of, one that celebrated diversity, creativity, and authenticity. Later that day, Maya returned to her hotel, her mind buzzing with excitement. She took out her laptop and opened her manuscript, the pages filled with notes and ideas that had flowed freely during the flight. Inspired by the conversations and connections she had made, she began to type, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as new ideas emerged. As she wrote, she reflected on the themes of identity and belonging that had been central to her work. It dawned on her that she wanted to explore the concept of community even further in her writing. How could she weave together the stories of the people she had met on the flight, the ways they had all intersected, and the importance of shared narratives in fostering understanding? Maya spent hours immersed in her writing, weaving together the threads of her experiences and the stories she had heard from her fellow travelers. The act of writing felt cathartic, a way to process the whirlwind of emotions she had experienced. When night fell, she stepped away from her laptop and made herself a cup of tea. Sitting on the balcony of her hotel room, she gazed out at the city skyline, the lights twinkling like stars against the dark canvas. She felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. The journey had been transformative, not just for her, but for everyone involved. The following week flew by in a blur of anticipation and preparation for her book launch. Maya received messages from Angela, David, and even Rachel, all expressing their excitement for the event. The support she felt from her new friends was heartwarming, solidifying her belief that community was built through shared experiences. On the day of the launch, Maya arrived at the bookstore early, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and nerves. The quaint shop was filled with shelves of books, cozy reading nooks, and a welcoming atmosphere. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the conversations that had fueled her writing and the connections that had blossomed. As the time for the event approached, the space began to fill with familiar faces. Angela and David arrived together, their smiles bright and encouraging. "We wouldn't miss it for the world," Angela exclaimed, pulling Maya into a warm hug. "Ready to inspire some more?" David teased, grinning widely. Maya felt a wave of warmth as she looked around. Rachel was there too, her face beaming with pride. The presence of her friends gave her the courage she needed to step onto the small stage at the front of the store. With a heart full of gratitude, Maya began to speak. "Thank you all for being here today. This journey has been incredible, and I owe a great deal of it to the connections I've made along the way. Each of you has played a part in this story, and I'm so grateful for your support." As she read excerpts from her book, Maya felt the energy in the room shift. The audience was captivated, hanging on to her every word. She poured her heart into her reading, sharing not just the words on the page, but the stories behind them, the struggles, the triumphs, and the universal search for belonging. After the reading, the Q&A session began, and hands shot up in the air. People were eager to engage, to connect, and to learn more. Maya found herself in a dialogue that felt electric, each question leading to deeper conversations about identity, resilience, and the power of storytelling. One person asked, "What inspired you to write about community and identity?" Maya replied, "I've always believed that our stories are interconnected. When we share our experiences, we create a tapestry that reflects the richness of our lives. It's about understanding that we're not alone in our struggles and that empathy can lead to real change." As the event continued, Maya noticed the impact of her words on the audience. People were sharing their own stories, relating to the themes in her book, and finding solace in the connections they were forming. Angela stood up and shared her experience with her nonprofit, how storytelling had become a vital part of empowering young people. David followed suit, recounting how he had used his platform to promote diverse authors and highlight the importance of representation in literature. Maya felt a sense of pride swell within her as she listened to their stories. This was what she had envisioned when she wrote her book, to create a space for dialogue, for sharing, and for healing. The event wrapped up with hugs, laughter, and promises to stay connected. As people began to leave, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had created a moment that transcended the confines of the bookstore, one that would resonate within each person who had participated. In the days that followed, Maya continued to receive messages of support and appreciation. The connections she had forged on the flight and during the launch had blossomed into friendships that she knew would endure. Reflecting on the journey, Maya realized that her experience was not just about her as an author. It was about the collective power of storytelling to unite people across different backgrounds. She felt invigorated by the idea that her work had the potential to inspire change and foster understanding. One evening, as she sat down to write, Maya found herself immersed in a new project, a collection of essays that would delve deeper into the stories of the individuals she had met on the flight. She envisioned weaving their narratives into her own, creating a rich tapestry of shared experiences that highlighted the beauty of diversity. As she typed, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was not just about her journey, it was about creating a platform for others to share their voices. Each story was a thread in the larger narrative, and Maya was determined to ensure they were heard. Months passed, and Maya's new project took shape. She reached out to her newfound friends, inviting them to contribute their stories, experiences, and reflections. The response was overwhelming, each person eager to share their unique perspective. Through this collaborative effort, Maya was reminded once again of the power of connection and storytelling. It became a celebration of community, a testament to the idea that when we lift each other up, We create a world that thrives on empathy and understanding. As the project came together, Maya felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the flight that had sparked this journey. What had begun as a moment of tension had transformed into a powerful narrative of resilience, connection, and the enduring power of stories. Looking back, she recognized that each encounter, every conversation, and every story shared had been a catalyst for growth. It had taught her that identity is not a solitary journey. It is woven together with the threads of others, creating a beautiful tapestry of shared humanity. In the end, Maya realized that her role as an author extended far beyond the pages of her books. It was about creating a space for dialogue, fostering connections, and reminding others that their stories matter. And as she continued to write, she carried that truth with her, determined to honor the voices that had inspired her along the way. The day of Maya's book launch dawned bright and clear, a perfect spring day that seemed to echo her excitement. She arrived at the bookstore early, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and nerves. The small, independent shop was a cozy haven filled with shelves overflowing with stories, each one a reminder of the power of words. Maya took a deep breath as she stepped inside, the familiar scent of coffee and old books enveloping her like a warm embrace. The event space was set up with rows of chairs facing a small stage adorned with a simple banner displaying the cover of Finding Home. As she prepared for the day ahead, she set up a table for her books, carefully arranging copies with a gentle touch. Each book was a piece of her heart, encapsulating her experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Today, she was ready to share that with the world. Maya took a moment to reflect. This book represented more than just her journey as an author. It symbolized the connections she had made, the stories she had heard, and the community she had begun to foster. She couldn't help but think of the flight that had sparked it all, the chance encounters, the honest conversations, and the realization of the importance of shared narratives. As the clock ticked closer to the event start time, familiar faces began to fill the room. Angela and David arrived too. Together, their enthusiasm palpable. "We're so excited for you, Maya," Angela exclaimed, pulling her into a warm hug. "Thanks for being here." "It means so much," Maya replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. Rachel, the flight attendant, joined them shortly after, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I brought a few friends from work. Everyone's eager to hear you speak," she said, gesturing to a small group of colleagues who had come to support her. Maya's heart fluttered at the sight of the crowd gathering. It was a reminder that her words resonated beyond her immediate circle, reaching people eager to connect and learn. As the audience settled into their seats, she took a deep breath, centering herself for what lay ahead. The event began with a warm welcome from the bookstore owner, who spoke about the importance of supporting local authors and the power of storytelling. "Today, we celebrate not just a book, but the stories that bind us together," they said, their words echoing Maya's sentiments. When it was finally her turn to take the stage, Maya felt a rush of adrenaline. She approached the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, all eager to hear her story. "Thank you all for being here today. This book is a culmination of my experiences and the stories I've gathered along the way," she began, her voice steady. As she read excerpts from Finding Home, Maya poured her heart into each word. She spoke about the complexities of identity, the struggle for belonging, and the importance of community. Her voice filled the room, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences that resonated with her audience. During the reading, she paused occasionally to share personal anecdotes, moments that had inspired her writing and shaped her understanding of the world. The audience was captivated, hanging on her every word, the energy in the room palpable. After the reading, Maya opened the floor to questions. Hands shot up eagerly, and she found herself engaged in a lively dialogue. One attendee asked, "What motivated you to write about community and identity?" Maya smiled, grateful for the opportunity to elaborate. "I've always believed that our stories are interconnected. When we share our experiences, we create a tapestry that reflects the richness of our lives. It's about understanding that we're not alone in our struggles and that empathy can lead to real change." The room erupted into applause, and Maya felt a surge of encouragement. The energy was electric, each question leading to deeper discussions about representation, resilience, and the transformative power of storytelling. Angela, inspired by Maya's words, shared her own experience with her nonprofit. "I've found that storytelling is a powerful tool in empowering youth. It helps them see themselves in a larger narrative," she said, her voice strong and passionate. Maya nodded, thrilled to see her friends engaging in the dialogue. "Exactly. When we provide a platform for young people to share their stories, we're not just giving them a voice, we're affirming their existence and their worth." David joined in, recounting how he had used his platform to highlight diverse authors. "It's so important to create spaces for marginalized voices. Representation matters, and it's our responsibility to uplift those stories," he said. The discussions continued, and as the event unfolded, Maya noticed that people were connecting in ways she had hoped for. Strangers were sharing their own stories, exchanging contact information, and forming bonds over shared experiences. It was a beautiful sight, one that reflected the very essence of what she had aimed to achieve with her book. After the Q&A, it was time for the book signing. Maya felt a rush of joy as people lined up to purchase copies of Finding Home. Each interaction was an opportunity to connect further, to hear snippets of their stories and experiences. When Rachel approached the table, she beamed with pride. "I'm so glad I got to witness this journey. Your words have the power to change lives," she said, handing Maya a copy of the book. Maya smiled, feeling deeply moved. "Thank you for your support, Rachel. It means the world to me." As the signing continued, Maya found herself reflecting on the impact of this event. It was not just about her book. It was about the community that had gathered, the stories that had been shared, and the connections that had been forged. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Maya felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had not only launched a book, but had also cultivated a sense of belonging among those present. The space had transformed into a sanctuary of stories, where everyone was encouraged to share their experiences and connect on a deeper level. As people began to leave, Maya stood by the door, thanking each person for attending. She felt a sense of fulfillment that she had never experienced before. It was a reminder that her words had the power to inspire, to uplift, and to foster community. Angela, David, and Rachel lingered, sharing laughter and stories long after the event had concluded. "I can't believe how powerful this has been," Angela said, her eyes shining with excitement. "I feel inspired to do even more with my nonprofit." "Me too. We should plan a collaborative event," David suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. "Something that brings together local authors and community members." Maya's heart swelled at the idea. "I love that. We could create a space for dialogue and storytelling where people can share their journeys and connect with one another." Rachel nodded in agreement. "That would be amazing. It's so important to continue building these connections." As they brainstormed ideas for future events, Maya felt a sense of hope blossoming within her. This was what she had envisioned when she began writing, creating a community where stories could thrive and where everyone felt seen and heard. The following days were filled with excitement and planning as Maya, Angela, David, and Rachel worked together to organize a community storytelling event. They envisioned a gathering that would celebrate diverse voices and encourage participants to share their experiences, fostering understanding and empathy among attendees. As the event date approached, word spread throughout the community. Maya and her friends worked tirelessly, reaching out to local authors, artists, and organizations to invite them to participate. The enthusiasm was palpable, and Maya felt a surge of energy as the event took shape. On the day of the event, the venue was packed with people, some familiar faces, others new. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with laughter and anticipation. Maya stood at the front, her heart racing with excitement as she looked out at the crowd. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today," she began, her voice ringing with enthusiasm. "We're here to celebrate the power of storytelling and the richness of our diverse experiences. Each of you has a story to tell, and together we can create a tapestry of connection and understanding." The audience erupted in applause, and Maya felt a rush of joy. The event kicked off with a series of readings, each author sharing their unique perspective. Stories flowed like a river, weaving together themes of identity, resilience, and hope. As the readings continued, Maya watched as people connected with one another, exchanging stories and laughter. It was a beautiful sight, a testament to the power of sharing experiences and the bonds that could form through vulnerability. After the readings, the event transitioned into small group discussions. Maya encouraged everyone to share their stories, to listen, and to engage with one another. It was a powerful experience as attendees opened up about their journeys, their struggles, and their triumphs. Maya felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her as she moved from group to group, listening to the conversations unfold. People were connecting, empathizing, and finding common ground. The energy in the room was electric, a celebration of the human experience. As the event drew to a close, Maya stood at the front, her heart full. Thank you all for sharing your stories today. This is just the beginning. Let's continue to uplift one another, to share our experiences, and to create a community where everyone feels valued. The audience erupted into applause, and Maya felt a surge of gratitude for the connections that had been forged. This was what she had hoped for, a community bound together by shared narratives and the understanding that we are all in this together. As people began to leave, many expressed their gratitude for the experience. Maya was overwhelmed by the heartfelt messages of appreciation, knowing that she had played a small role in fostering these connections. In the days that followed, the impact of the event rippled through the community. Attendees reached out to one another, forming support networks and continuing the conversations that had begun that day. Maya felt a profound sense of joy as she watched the relationships bloom. Reflecting on the journey, Maya realized that her role as an author extended far beyond the pages of her book. It was about creating spaces for dialogue, fostering connections, and empowering others to share their stories. In the months that followed, Maya continued to write and organize community events. She launched a series of workshops focused on storytelling, encouraging participants to explore their narratives and find their voices. Each session was filled with laughter, tears, and a sense of belonging. Through it all, Maya felt a deep sense of purpose. The connections she had forged during her flight had blossomed into a vibrant community, one that celebrated diversity and the power of stories. As she sat down to write one evening, Maya reflected on her journey. She had transformed her experiences into a source of inspiration, not just for herself, but for countless others. Her words had sparked connections, ignited conversations, and fostered understanding. With each new project, Maya was reminded that storytelling is not just an act of creation, it is a bridge that connects us all. And as she continued to write, she carried that truth with her, determined to honor the voices that had inspired her along the way. Months had passed since Maya's book launch and the subsequent community storytelling event, but the ripple effects of those gatherings were still being felt throughout the community. The connections that had blossomed in the cozy bookstore had transformed into an ongoing movement, one that celebrated diversity, fostered empathy, and encouraged the sharing of stories. As the seasons changed, Maya found herself deeply engaged in her writing, workshops, and community initiatives. Her days were filled with planning events, collaborating with fellow authors and community leaders, and nurturing the vibrant network of storytellers she had helped create. The excitement of the past months had blossomed into something beautiful, a tapestry of narratives woven together by shared experiences. Maya's workshops had gained popularity, drawing participants from various backgrounds. Each session became a safe haven where people could explore their stories, find their voices, and connect with others. Attendees ranged from aspiring writers to individuals simply looking to understand themselves better. The energy in the room was palpable, filled with laughter, tears, and the cathartic release that came from sharing one's truth. One afternoon, as Maya prepared for another workshop, she reflected on the transformations she had witnessed. Participants who had once felt hesitant or unsure were now embracing their narratives with confidence. She had seen friendships form, collaborations blossom, and even a few individuals launch their own projects inspired by the stories shared in the room. As the workshop began, Maya welcomed a diverse group of participants. Among them was Lisa, a recent college graduate grappling with her identity as a biracial woman in a predominantly white industry. "I want to write about my experiences, but I'm not sure where to start," she admitted, her voice laced with uncertainty. Maya smiled, encouraging her. "Start with what feels most authentic to you. Your story is important, and it deserves to be heard. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to share your truth." Throughout the workshop, Lisa began to open up, sharing her struggles and triumphs with the group. As she spoke, Maya could see the transformation happening, not just within Lisa, but within everyone present. Stories flowed like water, each one a testament to resilience, hope, and the human experience. After the workshop, Maya invited attendees to stay for a casual discussion. "Let's talk about what's next for our storytelling community. How can we continue to uplift each other and share our narratives?" The room buzzed with ideas. Participants suggested hosting open mic nights, creating a community blog for sharing written pieces, and even collaborating on an anthology of stories. Maya felt a surge of excitement as she listened to their enthusiasm. Each suggestion echoed the very essence of what she had hoped to create, a space where voices could rise together. As the weeks went by, the storytelling community thrived. Maya helped organize open mic nights, providing a platform for individuals to share their stories in a supportive environment. The events quickly gained traction, drawing crowds of locals eager to listen and engage. Each night was filled with a diverse range of voices, from seasoned poets to first-time storytellers, all sharing their experiences and connecting through the power of words. One night, during an open mic event, Maya took the stage to share a piece she had written about her journey as an author and the importance of community. "We all have stories that shape who we are," she began, her voice resonating with passion. "When we share those stories, we create connections that transcend boundaries and foster understanding." The audience listened intently, nodding along as Maya recounted her experiences of feeling isolated before discovering the beauty of community. "I encourage each of you to embrace your narratives and lift each other up. Together, we can create a world where every voice is valued." As she finished her reading, the room erupted into applause. Maya felt a rush of gratitude and joy, knowing that her words had resonated with so many. It was moments like these that fueled her passion and reinforced her belief in the power of storytelling. In the following months, the open mic nights evolved into a monthly series, becoming a staple in the community. The events created a sense of belonging for many, offering a space for individuals to express themselves authentically. Maya witnessed friendships blossom as attendees bonded over shared experiences and encouraged one another to take creative risks. Among the regular participants was Angela, who had been inspired by Maya's initiatives to expand her nonprofit work. Together, they developed a mentorship program for young aspiring writers, pairing them with experienced authors in the community. "I want to empower young voices," Angela said during one planning session. "Let's help them see the value of their stories." Maya beamed with pride at the initiative. "Absolutely. It's essential for young people to feel supported in sharing their narratives. They have so much to offer." As the mentorship program took shape, Maya and Angela reached out to local schools and community centers, inviting students to participate. The response was overwhelming. Young writers eagerly signed up, excited about the opportunity to connect with mentors and hone their craft. During the first mentorship session, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment as she watched the young participants engage with their mentors. The energy in the room was electric, filled with laughter and inspiration. She realized that the seeds they had planted were beginning to bear fruit. Young voices were emerging, and stories were being shared. In the midst of all the excitement, Maya continued to work on her next book. Inspired by the narratives shared during her workshops and events, she decided to create a collection of essays that would amplify the voices of those in her community. The project became a labor of love, a way to honor the stories that had touched her heart. As she delved into writing, Maya found herself reflecting on the diverse experiences of the individuals she had met. Each essay would highlight a different storyteller, capturing their unique journey and perspective. She envisioned the collection as a celebration of resilience and connection, showcasing the richness of the human experience. One evening, while drafting an essay about Lisa's journey, Maya felt a wave of inspiration wash over her. She reached out to Lisa, inviting her to share her story in the upcoming book. "Your voice is so powerful, and I believe it deserves to be highlighted," Maya said during their conversation. Lisa was thrilled at the opportunity. "I'd be honored. Writing about my experiences has been cathartic, and I'd love to share that with others." As Maya continued to gather stories for the anthology, she noticed how the act of sharing narratives was fostering a deeper sense of connection within the community. People were becoming more open and vulnerable, willing to share their truths in ways they had never imagined. It was a beautiful reminder of the impact that storytelling could have on individuals and relationships. In the months leading up to the book's publication, Maya organized several community events to celebrate the contributors and build excitement. Each gathering was filled with laughter, creativity, and a sense of belonging. Attendees shared their stories, connected with one another, and found solace in the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggles. As the launch date for the anthology approached, Maya felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She had poured her heart into this project, and now it was time to share it with the world. The cover design featured a collage of images representing the diverse voices within the collection, each one a reflection of the individuals who had inspired Maya along the way. On the day of the launch, the bookstore buzzed with energy as friends, family, and community members gathered to celebrate. Maya stood at the front, her heart racing with anticipation as she looked out at the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice filled with emotion. This anthology represents the stories of individuals in our community, each one a testament to resilience and the power of connection. As she introduced contributors to the audience, each individual shared a snippet of their story, captivating the crowd with their vulnerability and strength. The room was filled with applause and encouragement, a celebration of the unique narratives that had come together. Maya felt overwhelmed with gratitude as she watched the community come together in support of one another. It was a reminder that the journey she had embarked upon was not just about her story. It was about amplifying the voices of others and fostering a sense of belonging. After the readings, attendees lined up to purchase copies of the anthology, eager to support their friends and celebrate the power of storytelling. Maya moved through the crowd, chatting with familiar faces and hearing snippets of their own journeys. It was a beautiful tapestry of connections, woven together by shared experiences and the desire to uplift one another. As the event wound down, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment that she had never experienced before. The anthology had brought the community closer together, creating bonds that would endure after the launch. She had witnessed firsthand the transformative power of stories and the connections that could flourish through vulnerability and empathy. In the weeks that followed, the impact of the anthology continued to ripple through the community. Readers reached out to Maya, sharing how the stories had resonated with them and inspired them to reflect on their own narratives. Maya felt a deep sense of joy knowing that her work was fostering conversations about identity, resilience, and the importance of community. The mentorship program thrived as well, with young writers finding their voices and honing their craft. Maya received updates from Angela about the students' progress, each one a testament to the power of encouragement and support. "We've seen such growth in these young writers," Angela shared excitedly during one of their check-in meetings. "They're becoming more confident in sharing their stories." Maya couldn't help but smile at the thought. This was what she had envisioned all along, a community that uplifted one another, where stories could flourish, and where every voice was valued. As the year drew to a close, Maya sat down to reflect on her journey. She realized that the flight incident that had once felt like a moment of tension had transformed into a catalyst for change, a journey that had led her to a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. Maya's heart swelled with gratitude for the connections she had forged, the stories she had shared, and the community that had blossomed around her. She knew that the journey was far from over. It was just the beginning. With renewed purpose, Maya set her sights on the future, eager to continue uplifting voices and creating spaces for storytelling. In her heart, She carried the knowledge that stories have the power to heal, to connect, and to inspire change. And as she continued to write and engage with her community, she remained committed to honoring the voices that had touched her life and to fostering a world where everyone felt seen and heard. As the new year unfolded, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The success of her anthology and the growth of her community initiatives had sparked something within her, a desire to explore even deeper connections and foster a culture of storytelling that would endure long into the future. With each passing day, she became increasingly aware of the power of narratives to inspire change and promote understanding, not just within her community, but beyond. Maya decided to embark on a new project, a documentary that would capture the stories of individuals from diverse backgrounds within her community. She envisioned a film that would not only highlight the challenges faced by these individuals, but also celebrate their resilience and triumphs. The idea thrilled her, and she began to outline how to bring this vision to life. She reached out to local filmmakers and artists, sharing her concept and inviting them to collaborate. "I want to create something that not only showcases our stories, but also resonates with a broader audience," Maya explained during a brainstorming session. "We need to amplify these voices and show the beauty of our community." The response was overwhelmingly positive. Local filmmakers were excited about the opportunity to partner with Maya, and together they began to plan interviews, filming locations, and narratives that would weave together the unique experiences of individuals in the community. Each storyteller would have the chance to share their journey in their own words, capturing the essence of their identity and the struggles they had faced. Maya felt invigorated as they began the filming process. She traveled throughout the community, meeting with individuals who were eager to share their stories. From artists to activists, teachers to entrepreneurs, each person brought a unique perspective that contributed to the tapestry of narratives she was creating. One of the first individuals Maya interviewed was Luis, a local artist who had grown up in a marginalized neighborhood. "Art has always been my escape," he shared during the interview, his passion evident in his voice. "Through my work, I want to tell stories that aren't often heard." Maya nodded, captivated by his enthusiasm. "Your art speaks volumes. How do you hope it impacts others?" Luis leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with conviction. "I want people to see the beauty in our struggles, to understand that we're more than just statistics. We're resilient, creative, and full of potential." Maya felt a surge of inspiration as she listened to him. His words echoed the very essence of what she hoped to achieve with the documentary, a celebration of the human spirit and the richness of diverse experiences. Throughout the filming process, Maya encountered countless stories of resilience and hope. Each interview deepened her understanding of the challenges faced by individuals in her community, from systemic barriers to personal struggles. Yet, amidst the difficulties, she found an unwavering spirit of determination and a collective desire for change. During one particularly poignant interview, Maya spoke with Aisha, a single mother who had fought against adversity to create a better life for her children. "There were days when I didn't know how I would make ends meet," Aisha shared, her voice steady despite the weight of her experiences. "But I refused to let my circumstances define me. I wanted my kids to see that they can rise above their challenges." Maya felt deeply moved by Aisha's strength. "Your journey is incredible. How do you instill that same resilience in your children?" Aisha smiled softly, pride shining in her eyes. "I teach them to embrace their stories, to understand that every struggle is a stepping stone to greatness. I want them to know their worth and to never let anyone dim their light." As the documentary began to take shape, Maya found herself not just as a storyteller, but as a listener and an advocate. The process of capturing these narratives allowed her to forge deeper connections with each individual, and she felt honored to share their stories with the world. Once the filming was complete, Maya and her collaborators moved into the editing phase. As they pieced together the footage, she was struck by the powerful themes that emerged: stories of struggle, resilience, community, and the quest for belonging. Each narrative intertwined with the next, creating a rich tapestry that reflected the heart and soul of the community. Maya wanted the documentary to be a catalyst for change, sparking conversations about the importance of understanding diverse experiences and amplifying marginalized voices. She envisioned screening the film at community events, schools, and local festivals, encouraging dialogue and connection among viewers. When the premiere date approached, excitement buzzed through the community. Maya organized a screening event at a local theater, inviting everyone who had participated in the documentary and the community at large. The anticipation in the air was palpable as attendees gathered, eager to witness the stories that had been woven together. As the lights dimmed and the film began to play, Maya sat in the audience, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. She watched as the screen came alive with the faces and voices of her community, each story resonating with authenticity and emotion. The audience was captivated, laughing and crying alongside the storytellers on screen. When the final credits rolled, the theater erupted into applause, a collective celebration of the narratives that had been shared. Maya felt a surge of gratitude for everyone who had participated, for their willingness to be vulnerable and to share their truths. After the screening, Maya invited the audience to engage in a discussion. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice filled with emotion. "This film represents not just the stories of individuals, but the essence of our community. I hope it inspires you to continue the conversations about resilience and understanding." The room buzzed with energy as attendees shared their thoughts and reactions. Many expressed their appreciation for the powerful stories and the need for continued dialogue around the issues raised in the film. Maya listened intently, feeling a sense of fulfillment as she witnessed the connections being forged in real time. In the weeks following the premiere, Maya received an outpouring of feedback from viewers. People reached out to express how the documentary had impacted them personally, prompting them to reflect on their own stories and the stories of those around them. Maya felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that the film had sparked meaningful conversations and connections. Encouraged by the positive response, Maya organized a series of follow-up events that would build on the themes presented in the documentary. These gatherings aimed to facilitate discussions around resilience, identity, and community building. She wanted to create spaces where people could share their experiences, learn from one another, and cultivate empathy. One event focused on stories of resilience, where attendees were invited to share their journeys of overcoming adversity. Maya facilitated the discussions, guiding participants to explore the lessons they had learned along the way. The atmosphere was electric, filled with vulnerability and connection as people opened up about their struggles and triumphs. During one of these sessions, a young man named Malik shared a story. "I've faced so many obstacles growing up, from losing family members to battling self-doubt," he said, his voice steady yet emotional. "But I've learned that resilience is about finding strength in community. I wouldn't be here without the support of those around me." Maya nodded, touched by his openness. "Your story is a powerful reminder of the importance of community. How can we continue to lift each other up?" Malik smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "By sharing our stories and being there for one another, we need to create spaces where people feel safe to express themselves and know they're not alone." As the discussions continued, Maya felt a profound sense of connection and purpose. Each event became a testament to the power of storytelling, reinforcing the idea that when we share our experiences, we create a community that thrives on empathy and understanding. With each gathering, the community began to transform. People were engaging in conversations they had never thought to have before. Friendships were forming, alliances were being built, and individuals were finding their voices in ways they had never imagined. Maya's heart swelled with pride as she watched the impact of their collective efforts. The community had embraced the idea that every story mattered, and that together, they could create a culture of inclusivity and understanding. As the year progressed, Maya felt the weight of her experiences settling into her heart. She had witnessed the power of storytelling to bridge divides, foster connections, and ignite change. Yet, she also recognized that her work was far from over. Inspired by the transformations happening within her community, Maya began to contemplate her next steps. She envisioned expanding her initiatives beyond the local level, reaching out to other communities facing similar challenges. She wanted to share the stories of resilience and hope that she had encountered, using her platform to amplify diverse voices on a larger scale. Maya began to research ways to collaborate with organizations focused on social justice and community building. She reached out to leaders in these organizations, sharing her vision of creating a movement centered around storytelling and empathy. Together, we can cultivate a network of storytellers across different communities, creating a space where every voice is valued, she proposed during a meeting. The response was enthusiastic. Many leaders resonated with her mission and expressed a desire to collaborate. Maya felt invigorated by the possibilities ahead, knowing that they could create a ripple effect of change that would extend beyond their own communities. As she delved into these new partnerships, Maya began to develop a program focused on training emerging storytellers. The initiative aimed to equip individuals with the tools they needed to share their narratives effectively, empowering them to become advocates for their communities. Maya hosted workshops and training sessions, bringing together aspiring storytellers from various backgrounds. Storytelling is a powerful tool for change, she emphasized during one session. By sharing your experiences, you can inspire others and create a sense of belonging. The energy in the room was palpable as participants engaged in exercises that encouraged them to explore their narratives. They shared their struggles, triumphs, and the lessons they had learned along the way. Maya watched with pride as individuals began to embrace their stories, recognizing their power to create connection and inspire change. The program gained traction, attracting participants from neighboring communities. Maya's vision of a network of storytellers was coming to life, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment as she witnessed the growth and transformation happening around her. As the months went by, the impact of her initiatives began to extend beyond her immediate community. Stories were being shared across borders, inspiring individuals to reflect on their own narratives and engage in conversations about resilience and empathy. Maya's work was becoming a movement, and she was grateful to be at the forefront of it. As she sat down one evening to reflect on her journey, Maya felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The flight incident that had sparked her initial quest for connection had led her to a life filled with purpose and meaning. She had witnessed the power of storytelling to heal, to connect, and to inspire change. Maya's heart was filled with hope for the future. She envisioned a world where every voice was celebrated, where individuals felt empowered to share their stories, and where communities thrived on empathy and understanding. With renewed determination, she set her sights on the next chapter of her journey, eager to continue lifting up the voices of those around her and fostering a culture of storytelling that would endure for generations to come. In the years ahead, Maya would carry her mission forward, cultivating spaces for connection and encouraging individuals to embrace their narratives. Through her work, she would continue to honor the stories that had touched her life and inspire others to do the same. As she closed her notebook that evening, she smiled, knowing that the journey of storytelling was one without end. It was a path that would lead her to new horizons, deeper connections, and a legacy of stories that would resonate for years to come.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.